to this joint committee of the Nelson and Tasman councils. Can I invite Mayor King to kick us off with a karakia, please?
Kia ora, tuia ka runga, tuia ka raro, tuia ka waho, tuia ka roto, tuia te here tangata, ko rongo te ao, ke rongo te ao, homie, tuie, hai.
Takia. I have received apologies from Tasman, from Councillor Maru and from Councillor Ellis, and from Nelson, from Councillor Paki and Councillor Rainey. I'd like to move from the chair the acceptance of those apologies. I have a seconder in Councillor Courtney. If there is no discussion on that, I'll put those apologies be accepted. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, carried. We are confirming the business just as per the agenda. Are there any special interests associated today's joint meeting that any elected member wishes to declare an interest? That not being the case, we'll move to the item of public forum. It is my intention to move into confidential section to enable elected members to consider the advice that's been received from council officers about the risk to council and ratepayers on the proposed public presentation in the name of Mr. Steve Cross. For context, staff raised concerns about this application to present at public forum, given its specific reference to Private Plan Change 30 that deals with the proposed and possible extension of the Nelson Airport runway. Council officers originally said to me, "We think it's too risky, you should decline." I said, "Oh, look, I like to be pretty open. I'm going to explicitly say that," and I did in the response to Mr. Cross, and specifically said you need to be very careful not to include in your presentational comments any reference to Plan Change 30 and the proposal for a one-way extension. Yesterday afternoon, council officers brought to my attention Mr. Cross's presentation that he asked to circulate, and it makes multiple and specific reference to Plan Change 30 on the airport extension. Now, my view of where there's a tension here is this: including in the discussion and the debate about whether the airport company is acting as good neighbours. And I just want to give it a little bit of common sense perspective of the frustration that there is in the community. On the one hand, the airport company is following a judicial process under their RMA, and under that is prohibited from engaging with community groups and some of those that have got concerns. On the other hand, I have the Tahunanui community that feels quite frustrated with the airport company that they can't get round the table with them, thus some of the accusations that they're not acting in good faith. Now, I think everybody's acting in good faith. There's just some misunderstanding, but there are substantive risks. Now, the key issue on which the councils received the application to present at public forum was about the development of the statement of intent for the airport company for the 25-26 year, of which we're at an early stage. My view and the advice of officials was the safest way, to be fair to everybody, was that we don't finalise that statement of intent until April, May next year. We're expecting a recommendation from the hearing panel on the plan change either before Christmas or certainly early in the new year, and that the safest thing to do was to allow the public presentation on the statement of intent issues in February next year, because that's the way that we can, doesn't prejudice the process of making sure we get the statement of intent right, but removes any risk of contamination of the proper process we've set up around the airport. Now, I've circulated that information to councillors, wanted the public to be aware of the bit of a jam that we've got ourselves in, and I'm going to move from the chair that we go into confidential business, and that's to enable our elected members to hear the advice from officials about what those legal risks are. There is nothing unusual about council going into confidential section when we are getting such advice about risks. And the risks are not just to council, they're also to ratepayers. And so we want to get it right. So I will move from the chair that we move into confidential business. Is there somebody prepared to second that?
A comment.
No, I'm seeking a seconder for us. Thank you, Councillor Mayling. I have a mover and a seconder for us moving into confidential business to enable us to be able to receive advice around how we manage this process while minimising the risks to our councils. I'm going to put that resolution.
Are we open to debate before going to public?
Can I just check when we go into confidential business, is that a debatable item?
It's a procedural item. You should answer questions.
I'm happy to answer any questions as to why I want to go into confidential business. And the answer for that is because for us to be able to receive advice from officials around legal risks, you'd have to be pretty foolish to be able to tell everybody in the world what your legal risks on public broadcasts. That is not looking after the legal risks of the council. Are there any questions on my motion that's been seconded by Councillor Mayling?
I think it was
Questions, Councillor Skinner.
a comment there, but I think you put the comment in.
No, I'm able under the standing orders, Councillor Skinner, to take questions.
I'm questioning us going into public excluded. I can see if we've got confidential, sensitive industry information. What I've seen of the report in regards to what we are in public excluded, I see in my 12 years experience, nothing in there which would deem public excluded.
That is not a question. Councillor Skinner.
Question.
Councillor Skinner.
You have a question.
Councillor Skinner.
Come on, tone it down.
No. Well, the standing orders say that you're allowed to ask questions.
I have asked.
Where's the question?
The question is, I'm yet to see why we're to go into public excluded. And
I've explained.
You raised the question about Steve Cross's presentation, and what I understand on there, it's pretty toned down. And I mean, mentioning about the Plan 29 and the camp and their desires and where they feel that we or the airport let them down is an opinion. I don't see any of it as defamatory. I'd like that raised. Maybe you can change my mind when it comes to confidential, but I raise the question as to why we see fit go into confidential for those items.
I still don't think you're asking a question and breaching standing orders, but you've made a public statement and I'm going to respond directly. You have said there is nothing in Mr. Cross's presentation that's out of the norm.
Correct.
He describes the actions of the airport company as treating residents as non-humans. That's what he says in his written presentation to council.
Oh.
Mr. Cross says in his presentation that they have behaved disgracefully, that they've exploited, that they show a lack of compassion. He goes on and says that the language, and I'm happy to share it, is quite over the top. And I asked the two councils to consider whether that is fair on the directors and the chief executives that we have in our company. And that's why I wish this matter to be dealt with in confidential section, Mr. Skinner.
I don't agree that those are reasons for it, but
do you believe that describing people as non-humans is reasonable?
I wouldn't use those words, but
well, that's the words that Mr. Cross has chosen to use about the people that work for our airport company.
That's an unfair comment, but the guts of what is an opinion, not a defamatory. If it's not defamatory, I understand that. I'd ask him to retract. I'd ask him to retract that statement. But the rest of his guts, what I said, I cannot see anything in there that's defamatory. An opinion that we may agree or disagree in, but not to defer his speaking on it.
Are there any further questions with respect to my motion that we go into public excluded section to receive advice? Councillor Campbell? Questions?
I would just like to ask if you will withdraw your comment where you have said that Tahuna Nui is cross with the Nelson Airport as the Tahuna Nui liaison councillor who serves that community. I'd be extremely concerned if you're saying this community's cross with the airport. They're simply just living their lives.
Now, I've simply said that I think there is going on here is that the airport company on legal advice is following the RMA process, and that is causing frustration in the Tahuna Nui community because they are wanting to engage with the airport company, and the airport company has declined to do so. And I have said that and heard that directly from the Tahuna Nui Residents Association, that frustration. I'm just trying to be fair as to why this tension exists. Councillor Stella, question.
Thanks, Nick. Just for clarity around, for the, in fairness to all the people who are here in the public gallery, and following on from Councillor Skinner's line of questioning, is it the case that there's two separate issues here with regard to confidentiality? Right now, we're just considering staff or officer advice around the public forum, and later on, I think Councillor Skinner was talking about whether considerations around the statement of expectation should be in confidence or not. So there are two separate things for us to consider.
And at the proper time, we are on item 4 of the agenda, which is about public forum. Councillor Skinner was out of order in raising issues about the...
Sorry, Mike, sorry.
Point of order. Point of order. I was not out of order. I raised the question. You made a comment.
We're on...
It's unfair.
And look, I'm sorry, Councillor Skinner. We are on public forum. The issue is whether we should go into public excluded session to receive advice on staff about the risks of the presentation that Mr. Cross is wanting to give to council that he has applied for. There's a separate item on the agenda later in the business of which you can have a debate about whether we're in public excluded or not. That is not the item that we're up to.
Thanks, that was my question. If we do go into public exclude and have this discussion, is it possible that one outcome might be that elected members feel the public forum is okay and there will actually be a public forum after that? And is
standing orders actually say that it's at the discretion of the chair. It doesn't say it's at the discretion. So, look, I'm happy to have that discussion. Let's have that in the public excluded session. I wish elected members to be able to receive the advice of staff.
And so just for the benefit of the people here from the community, it is possible that we'll go into excluded and come back and there will be a public forum. That is one that's on the table, is it?
We're going into public forum. Everything is possible. Councillors and the council's combined meetings in control of its own destiny. Councillor Bench.
Mayor Nick, you just asked a question that you don't understand why this tension exists.
No, I've explained why the tension exists. The tension exists
because people can't have their say. This is the forum for people to have their say. That's why the tension exists.
There's no question that residents are able to have their say. The question is, with respect to the plan change, this council, as in Nelson, unanimously made a decision that the issue of the runway extension would go to an independent hearings panel. And we put the ratepayers and the council at substantial legal risk if people during public forum comment on that issue. Councillor Hodgson, Councillor Sanson.
If the legal advice gives us a sense of comfort in the public presentation, does that mean we could then come back to the item of public forum and potentially hear that submission?
The councillors need to hear the advice from advisors and then the meetings in its control. I just wish elected members to be able to hear officers' advice. Councillor Sanson.
Thanks, Mayor Nick. Just a question of clarification. Does the public forum presentation, maybe if there's more than one, do they specifically reference a plan change?
Yes, on page 6 of the presentation, it specifically refers to PC 330 on at least 3 occasions in the presentation.
Okay.
The presentation that the council received yesterday from the applicant for public forum did, and we don't have anything from yourself, madam. There are no further questions?
I'm just wondering if a way forward might be for public forum to happen with, provided nobody references any plan changes. I mean,
let's discuss that in the opportunity. I wish simply elected members to be able to get staff advice. That being the case, I'm going to put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I declare the motion carried. Can we please move council's meeting into confidential section, please? Yes.